Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you.
Kris, today the Trudeau government upped the federal carbon tax. Was this an insensitive move considering the kind of crisis we're in right now?
Well, it's really tone deaf. It's very insensitive. Not only does the carbon tax increase the cost of gasoline and diesel, which of course makes all of our trucks go that are delivering the goods and the groceries that we all need right now while we're trapped at home. Farmers, a lot of people may not realize this. Farmers, of course, use diesel for their equipment, and they use natural gas almost exclusively to dry grain and to dry their product. It has to be dried once it's harvested. And that is costing farmers thousands of dollars on their natural gas bills. It's stunning how much this federal carbon tax is already costing farmers. And to jack it up now, in the middle of this pandemic, when people are all worried about their jobs, people are boarding up their small businesses, it's really the wrong move. And to give a perfect example as to how tone-deaf this is, the BC government, which is NDP propped up by the Green Party, the province that invented the carbon tax in the first place, they paused it. Didn't cancel it yet. They've paused it. They're not increasing it. They're not jacking it up. If they know that they'd best hit pause on that tax, Trudeau should know better, but he's not.
Well, what do you say to BC? They've not implemented their carbon tax hike as planned April 1st. MLAs are not hiking their pay, but apparently the members of Parliament in Ottawa are hiking their pay today.
Great point. This is another example where Premier John Horgan of British Columbia is doing a much better job, at least tone-wise and optics-wise, than Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And to give you an example of that pay raise, so we knew at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation here that the Member of Parliament raises were coming up for April 1st. And so last week I was curious, I wonder if the MLAs provincially are also scheduled to have an automatic increase. You know, this is already preset. And so I phoned them last week to say, hey, I was curious, it's nowhere on your website. Are you guys getting a pay hike? And they got back to me yesterday. The clerk got back to me and said, we're just fresh out of the Legislative Assembly Management Committee, the LAMC meeting, and we've all voted unanimously, no pay raise for MLAs for this year. So they're pausing it by at least 12 months. But again, same example. Federally, they're just going ahead with it. Now, a small handful of MPs have said we're going to donate our pay increase to local charities, especially at a time like this, and we would encourage every single one of them to do the same thing. But, so far they're not rolling it back.
Now, charities say they're going to be hit hard here. Should Canadians be able to, once again, deduct 100% of their charitable contributions this time around because they really do need it?
They really do need it. And frankly, at this point, anything helps. And the main thing that they need to do is to do it fast and to do it fully and clearly. What we're seeing more and more of at the federal level are half announcements. So they'll make an announcement and they'll say something like, we'll have a 10% wage subsidy for small business owners for their employees, which is nothing. That wouldn't help at all. And they came up and said, okay, fine, it's going to be 75%. But we have no background or details. And now they've come out with more details on it today, but there are so many strings attached to this thing. Like, we're hearing all sorts of conflicting reports. At one point, they're saying that if you sell alcohol and you're a small business, you're not eligible for this. Other ones dispute that and say that's not true. whether or not you're publicly traded or funded, it's just a mess. And so this is where we're pleading, especially with the federal government. If you want to help, because this is unprecedented, this is almost like a natural disaster or an act of war, we understand that you have to have special measures here. Just do it quickly and fully and cleanly. It would be better to cut people a check or to cut businesses a check in hopes that they use it and need it, and then tax them back on it a year from now if they don't use it and it turns out they didn't need it. It's better to give that money up front, the way they are in most parts of the United States, than to try to funnel everybody through an EI sort of government system. It's going to be too late.
Should the government have a very simple, easy-to-use way to both support small business and individuals who will lose their income because of this crisis?
Sure. Something like cutting a check straight up front of here's, 3 big months of lump sum amounts, boom, 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 based on what your income was, or based on what, your store's income was, otherwise would have been, and have them cut those checks then. And again, if it's not used, or if for some reason the business happens to be flush with cash and isn't being brutalized by this terrible pandemic shutdown, then fine. Then make up the difference later. But the vast majority of small businesses are getting hammered right now. They need help right now. And you have to keep in mind that small businesses aren't just these amorphous big companies. They're people. They're your neighbors. They could be you. All of the employees that have depended on them for years. This is really the grassroots foundation of our economy. If they all go bankrupt and go belly up, once this is all over, they won't just magically spring back to life again. They'll be gone. And then where do people go for jobs? See, this is where I think it's really compounding a lot of the concern for people, where if you lose your job, you get laid off, and EI won't cut it, like you can't afford your rent. Usually, if you're a really industrious person and you're tenacious, you can make it work. You can hop back up and get another job. You can pick up that overnight job. You can pick up a few more shifts. But if all of those jobs are frozen, what are you going to do? So I think this is really compounding the concern for people.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, a survey found about a third of Canadian small businesses feel they won't be able to survive this. Small business provides a little over 70% of the jobs in Canada. Do you think the government is insensitive when it comes to small business and what they do for the country?
I think they're unaware. I always like to ascribe the best of intentions, and I don't think they mean to, but I think they are largely unaware. Because if you haven't worked at a small business yourself, or if you haven't run a small business yourself, you don't know what's involved. If you've spent your life going to university and then getting a really high-paid white-collar job and then working on Parliament Hill, and that has been your career path, and you've never run that truck shop, you've never owned that laundromat, you've never had a pub with your name above it, you don't understand what it is to put together a payroll. You don't know what it is to pay a workforce, to get your insurance, to, make your month end, any of those things. And a lot of our politicians and our leaders aren't from that set. And almost none of our bureaucrats, our departmental leaders, are from that set. so, yeah, I think they're unaware of the role of small business. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us are going to learn the hard way how important small businesses are. And again, we just plead with the government. We know you want to help. We're okay with that. We're not going to come after you for helping right now, but you have to do it right. For goodness sake, don't try to funnel this through Service Canada and a 1-800 number. Don't try to get the Phoenix Pay system to pay it out. Could you just imagine? This needs to be cash up front. And then if you're worried about, overlap, just deal with that later. But cash up front.
Where do you think the government can really improve its efforts right now and still be responsible to taxpayers?
So from a tax perspective, if you lighten our tax load, that gives you immediate relief. So that is something that can be done with a couple of keystrokes on a keyboard. Give people tax relief. So for example, don't raise the carbon tax. In fact, we think the federal carbon tax should be completely obliterated, gotten rid of. That will save people a lot of money. Reduce people's income taxes. Consult with your provincial counterparts and find out what they're doing with commercial property taxes, for example. Here in British Columbia, from what we understand, because everything is detailed and complex, from what we understand, commercial property taxes are being cut in half, so 50%. On average, the government is saying that's going to save an urban commercial property taxpayer about $4,000. That's good. See if you can do that in any way, shape, or form in other jurisdictions across Canada. So if you could do immediate tax relief, that's great. If you can provide immediate help with money to small businesses to keep their employees on staff, that's good too. So what we need is clarity and speed. And we know that government often isn't good at either of those things. And so that's why we're nervous.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, apparently they're putting up border checks between the Quebec and Ontario borders. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, I was just reading about that because I used to live in Ottawa. That's quite something. They apparently have border checks on all the bridges that connect what used to be called Hull, and most people call it Gatineau now, which is the city across the river in Quebec, from Ottawa. And so folks who haven't lived there before, people commute back and forth all the time. Like they live in Quebec quite often and they work in Ontario. It's just how it goes. But apparently now they're doing checkpoints. And so we're in a strange time. It's really uncharted waters. And so we also want people to start keeping an eye on overreach, to make sure that, your freedom is being respected and protected while you are maintaining your responsibility to keep other people safe and healthy, and social distancing, as we say, and keeping other people safe. But we have to really keep an eye on this stuff. And to give an example, parliamentary-wise, look what happened when they attempted to say that you should have unlimited taxing and spending powers for a year and 9 months. That was buried in the bill. And Bill Morneau, our finance minister, if it had passed the way it was drafted, would have had unlimited taxing and spending powers that didn't need to be checked over by Parliament until December 2021. When during the Blitz, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, he still had budgets go through Parliament in England. If you want to start comparing this to a crisis, fine, but you still need to be accountable in Parliament. And so that was caught because it was leaked. So in that sense, we do need to remain vigilant while staying responsible.
Yes, because I remember during the FLQ crisis, in the 70s where terrorists were bombing Montreal and people were being killed and kidnapped. Police across the country used the War Measures Act to violate people's rights left, right, and center, like raiding a high school social studies class that was discussing what was happening in the country. Do you think we have to be careful about giving the police powers, perhaps powers they'll never give up?
This is the issue when you give government power. And so when it happens, it says most people are on board because it's for safety reasons. But you have to be very careful because liberty is precious and it can slip away easily. Now, in times of crisis, and we all need to work together as one unit, I think most people get it, right? Because you have to protect other people, you have to make sure you're not infecting them. If it's a pandemic, that's important. But once that's over, you need to be very careful and meticulous that those powers subside and ease. That's why the War Measures Act was changed over to the Emergency Measures Act in the 80s. Because there were some people, as you point out, who had issues and trouble with some of the powers that were given during the War Measures Act. And so they made them more accountable to Parliament. But when you do something like try to slip a spending bill in that gives you power for a year and 9 months, that's very alarming. We need to make sure that's not happening. And usually using legislation, the way to get around that is to make sure that there are sunset clauses. So if you have an emergency, God forbid there's an attack or a tsunami or something like that, there are sunset measures built into these emergency response acts. So that means that they automatically go away. Those powers automatically go away. If it's curfew, quarantine, business shutdown, anything like that, they evaporate unless you have another quorum, you have another parliament, and you pass it again.
Kris, I hope you and your family can stay safe through these tough times.
You too. You as well.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. If you have any questions for Kris or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @TalkDigitalNet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.